Have you ever felt like someone else is living your life? Not metaphorically, I mean literally. Because a few weeks ago, I found someone online who had my face, my friends, and my memories. My name is Ethan. I'm a college student in California. My life was normal. Classes, coffee, hanging out with my two best friends, Jake and Mia. Nothing special ever happened to me. Until one night. I was scrolling through my phone when I got tagged in a video. I didn't recognize the account, so I almost ignored it. But something felt off. When I opened it, I froze. The person in the video looked exactly like me. Same face, same smile, same voice. But the name on the account wasn't mine. It was Elena Reed. At first, I thought it was just someone who looked like me. You know, like those doppelganger stories you see online. But then I checked her profile, and that's when things stopped making sense. She went to my college. She posted pictures at the same cafe I go to every day. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a photo of her with Jake and Mia, my best friends. All three of them were smiling like they'd known each other forever. The caption said, "Best friends forever, heart." I couldn't breathe. I called Jake immediately. I asked him, "Who is Elena?" He paused for a second, then laughed. "Bro, I think you're overthinking. I don't know any Elena." His voice sounded normal, too normal. Then I asked Mia. She hesitated, and then she said, "Ethan, are you okay?" That was the moment I knew something was wrong. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept scrolling through Elena's account again and again, and then I found a video. She was talking about her childhood. At first, I was just curious, but then she started saying things that made my heart stop. She talked about growing up in a small house near a lake. She talked about her first dog. She even mentioned breaking her arm when she was 10. Every single detail was exactly the same as my life. Not similar, not close, exactly the same. It was like she had lived my entire life, step by step. The next day, I decided I needed answers, so I went to the cafe she always posted from. And that's when I saw her, sitting at my usual table, with Jake and Mia, laughing, like everything was normal, like she belonged there. I walked straight up to them. My heart was racing so fast I could barely speak. I looked at her and said, "Who are you?" She looked confused. Jake stood up and said, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" I pointed at her and said, "That's my life. You're living my life." Everything went silent. Mia started tearing up, and Elena just looked at me, like I was a stranger. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I think you need help." I stepped back. Nothing made sense anymore. It felt like I was the outsider in my own life. I left the cafe and just started walking. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what was real anymore. So I pulled out my phone. I wanted to check my messages, my photos, something that proved I existed. But when I unlocked it, everything was gone. No contacts, no social media, no photos. It was like my entire life had been erased. I started running home. I thought maybe everything would make sense there. But when I got to my apartment, my key didn't work. I tried again and again. Then the door opened. But it wasn't my home anymore. A stranger stood there. He looked at me like I was crazy. "Can I help you?" he said. I stepped back slowly. My hands were shaking. I found a nearby store window and looked at my reflection. And that's when everything broke. The face staring back at me wasn't mine. It was someone else, a complete stranger. That's when I realized the truth. Maybe she didn't steal my life. Maybe I was the one who didn't belong in it. And somewhere out there, Elena is still living perfectly, with my friends, my memories, my life. A life that remembers everything except me. The face in the mirror wasn't mine. I stood there, frozen, staring at someone I had never seen before. Different eyes, different jawline, different everything. But the fear inside me, that was still mine. I didn't scream. I didn't run. because deep down, I already knew something was terribly wrong. I spent the next few hours walking. No destination, no plan, just trying to understand who I was now. I tried talking to people. No one recognized me, not even as a stranger. It was like I didn't exist at all. I went back to the cafe. I don't know why. Maybe I hoped something would change. Maybe I hoped they'd remember me. They were there again. Jake, Mia, and her, Elena, laughing like nothing had ever happened. I sat at a table nearby, close enough to hear them, far enough to not be noticed. Jake said something that made my heart stop. Ever since that weird guy showed up yesterday, I've been feeling off. Weird guy. That's what I was now. Mia nodded slowly. Yeah, it felt like he knew us. Elena stayed quiet, just staring at her coffee. Then she said something strange. I don't think he was lying. That was the first time someone believed me, even a little. I followed Elena when she left. I know how that sounds, but she was the only connection I had left. She walked home alone. A small apartment, second floor, lights warm inside. Everything felt familiar. I waited outside for hours. And then something impossible happened. The lights flickered, just once, and for a split second, I saw something through the window. Not Elena, me. I ran up the stairs, knocked on the door, hard. Elena opened it, startled. Why are you following me? She asked. I pushed past her. I didn't care anymore. I ran to the mirror inside her apartment, and there it was again. Not my current face, my real face. For a moment, I was back. Then it flickered and disappeared. Elena stepped closer, her voice shaking. I saw it too. That's when everything changed. Elena sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. She looked at me and said, I've been having dreams. Not normal dreams. Memories. My memories. She described my childhood, my room, my dog, my life. But she didn't understand why. Neither did I, until she said one word. Experiment. She told me about a research program, something she signed up for online, a study about memory transfer and identity simulation. At first, it sounded harmless, just dreams, just emotions. But then, things became real. She started remembering things she never lived, and slowly, those memories became her reality, and mine started disappearing. It wasn't random. It wasn't supernatural. It was planned. Someone was testing if a person's life could be transferred to someone else. And it worked. Too well. Elena didn't steal my life. She was given it, and I was deleted. We can fix this, I said, even though I had no idea how. She shook her head. No, we can't, because the more I remember, the more you disappear. Silence. We both understood what that meant. Only one of us could exist. She looked at me, with tears in her eyes. I don't want to take your life. I laughed softly, a broken laugh. You already did. There were two choices, fight and risk destroying everything, or let it happen. Let her live. Let me fade. The next morning, I woke up, in my room, my real room. Everything was back, my phone, my photos, my life. I ran outside, called Jake, called Mia. Everything was normal, like nothing ever happened, like it was all a dream, until I checked my phone. One message from an unknown number. Elena Reed. I opened it, and my heart stopped. Thank you for giving me your life. I slowly looked into the mirror, and for just a second, I saw her, smiling. Some stories don't end, they just change who remembers them. Subscribe to Storybite, because the next story might already be happening to you.